The moment sunlight touches a human being, the experience begins with the eyes, even before the skin starts sensing warmth. The eyes are not just organs for vision. They are the brain's early warning system, designed to detect and interpret light as a fundamental environmental cue. Deep within the retina, there are specialized photoreceptor cells. Most people are familiar with rods and cones, the cells that allow us to see shapes and colors. However, there is another less known type of photoreceptor, intrinsically photosensitive retinal ganglion cells. These cells are highly sensitive to blue light, which is abundant in morning sunlight. When sunlight reaches the retina, these IPRGCs absorb the light and generate electrical impulses. These impulses travel along the recto-hypothalamic tract directly to the suprachiasmatic nucleus of the hypothalamus. The SCN is often referred to as the brain's master clock because it regulates the circadian rhythm, which governs the daily cycles of sleep, hormone release, metabolism, and body temperature. Without this early light signal, the brain's internal clock can drift, leading to sleep disorders, fatigue, and hormonal imbalances. As the sunlight signal reaches the SCN, the brain begins a series of biochemical changes. One of the first actions is the suppression of melatonin, the hormone produced by the pineal gland that makes us feel sleepy. Melatonin levels are naturally higher at night and low in the day, but the SCN ensures that this rhythm aligns with actual daylight. When melatonin decreases, the brain triggers wakefulness and increases cortical activity, particularly in areas associated with attention, decision-making, and memory. This is why stepping into the sun first thing in the morning can make someone feel instantly more alert and mentally switched on. Simultaneously, the SCN communicates with other parts of the hypothalamus to modulate the autonomic nervous system, subtly increasing heart rate and respiratory rate, preparing the body for daytime activity. The brain interprets this signal as the start of a biological workday, activating systems that enhance energy mobilization and mental focus. These signals travel further to the reticular activating system, which acts like a floodgate for sensory inputs, enhancing brain responsiveness. Suddenly, the person standing in sunlight becomes more aware of sounds, sights, and movement around them. The brain is primed for interaction with the environment. Beyond mere alertness, sunlight also influences mood through neurotransmitter modulation. Exposure to sunlight stimulates serotonin production, a neurotransmitter critical for emotional retive function. The SCN communicates indirectly with the raphe nuclei in the brainstem, where serotonin is synthesized. Higher serotonin levels contribute to feelings of calmness, focus, and motivation. Over time, consistent morning sunlight exposure trains the brain to stabilize mood and regulate stress more efficiently. From a neurological perspective, sunlight is essentially an information packet for the brain. The brain interprets the intensity, duration, and wavelength of light to understand the time of day, environmental conditions, and even seasonal changes. This allows the body to anticipate daily challenges, optimize energy use, and align physiological processes with the natural world. For instance, the hypothalamus adjusts hormone production not only for wakefulness but also for cortisol, the stress hormone that peaks naturally in the early morning to help the body transition from rest to activity. Even before the skin begins to feel warmth or sweat, the brain has already activated complex feedback loops. Blood vessels in the brain may slightly dilate to accommodate changes in neural activity. Neural networks involved in memory encoding and become more active, preparing the person to learn, focus, and make decisions. The hippocampus, a region central to memory and spatial navigation, becomes more receptive to sensory input, meaning that sunlight exposure early in the day can enhance both cognitive performance and emotional stability. An often overlooked aspect of this process involves energy metabolism in the brain. The hypothalamus coordinates with the pancreas and liver to regulate blood glucose levels, ensuring the brain receives a steady supply of fuel. This is critical because the human brain, though only about 2% of body weight, consumes roughly 20% of the body's energy. Sunlight acts as a cue for the brain to prepare energy reserves, optimizing neural activity and alertness for the tasks ahead. Culturally and psychologically, humans have long recognized the power of sunlight on mental clarity. Ancient practices, such as morning prayers or sun salutations, are not just spiritual, they align the body and brain with natural light cycles. Modern research supports these studies, has shown that exposure to natural light in the morning improves sleep quality, concentration, and overall brain health, reducing the risk of depression and cognitive decline. In summary, the first touch of sunlight is a multi-layered event for the brain. It starts with the eyes, activating photoreceptors and sending electrical signals to the hypothalamus. It suppresses melatonin, boosts serotonin, adjusts cortisol rhythms, primes the autonomic nervous system, enhances memory networks, and even prepares energy metabolism. All of this occurs within seconds of standing in sunlight, often without conscious awareness. The brain is not just passively observing, it is actively interpreting, responding, and preparing the entire body for optimal function. Sunlight, in essence, becomes a silent yet powerful conductor of neurological and physiological harmony. Standing in sunlight is more than just a visual experience. It is also a thermal challenge for the human body. As the sun's rays touch the skin, heat begins to penetrate the tissues, creating a cascade of signals that the brain must quickly interpret and respond to. The human body, and especially the brain, functions optimally within a narrow temperature range, approximately 36 to 37.5 degrees C. Even minor deviations outside this range can compromise enzyme function, nerve conduction, and cognitive processes. Therefore, the brain acts as a central thermostat, constantly monitoring and adjusting the body's temperature to ensure survival and optimal performance. The process begins with thermoreceptors located in the skin. These specialized nerve endings are sensitive to both heat and cold. When sunlight warms the skin, the thermoreceptors generate electrical signals that travel via sensory neurons to the preoptic area of the hypothalamus, the region responsible for temperature regulation. The brain now interprets the intensity, duration, and location of heat exposure, initiating precise physiological responses. The first response is vasodilation. Small arteries and capillaries near the skin surface widen, increasing blood flow. By bringing warm blood to the periphery, the body can release excess heat into the environment. This is why, on a sunny day, skin often appears flushed, a sign that the brain is actively managing thermal balance. Alongside this, the brain stimulates sweat glands to secrete sweat. As sweat evaporates from the skin surface, it removes heat through latent heat loss, a process vital for cooling in hot conditions. Interestingly, the brain does not simply react to the skin's temperature alone. Internal core temperature sensors located in the brain, spinal cord, and major organs provide continuous feedback. This dual monitoring system, peripheral and central, peripheral mechanisms are deployed proportionally, avoiding both overheating and excessive energy loss. In extreme sunlight, when heat load is high, the brain coordinates additional protective responses. It may slightly increase heart rate and respiratory rate, enhancing heat transfer and oxygen delivery to maintain brain function. While these mechanisms operate automatically, they are deeply intertwined with survival instincts. If the brain detects that cooling responses are insufficient, perhaps due to extreme heat or dehydration, it activates behavioral responses, such as seeking shade, reducing activity, or drinking water. This shows that temperature control is not purely mechanical, it is a combination of physiological regulation and conscious behavior, orchestrated by the brain. The hypothalamus also interacts with the autonomic nervous system, which divides into sympathetic and parasympathetic branches. When sunlight heats the body, the sympathetic system subtly adjusts blood flow, stimulates sweat production, and primes the body for rapid adaptation. Simultaneously, the parasympathetic system ensures that excessive energy is not wasted, balancing survival with efficiency. This intricate coordination ensures that heat stress does not impair brain function or cognition. Beyond immediate survival, the brain's temperature control systems also influence mental performance. Slight warmth from sunlight can enhance cerebral blood flow, increasing oxygen and glucose delivery to neurons. This improves alertness, memory formation, and decision-making. However, if temperature rises too high, neurons become stressed, leading to confusion, dizziness, and impaired concentration. This is why prolonged exposure to intense sunlight, without hydration or shade, can trigger heat stroke, a condition in which brain cells begin to malfunction due to excessive thermal load. Sunlight also indirectly affects hormonal balance in temperature regulation. For example, heat stress can increase cortisol secretion, preparing the body for potential danger while mobilizing energy reserves. Likewise, aldosterone, a hormone controlling sodium retention, helps maintain fluid balance to support sweat production. These hormonal adjustments are orchestrated by the hypothalamus, pituitary gland, and adrenal glands, forming a complex network of brain-controlled thermoregulation. Interestingly, this process is not uniform across individuals. Factors such as age, hydration status, fitness level, and skin pigmentation influence how the brain manages heat. Children and elderly individuals often have less efficient thermoregulation, making them more vulnerable to heat stress. Even subtle differences in sunlight exposure, such as the angle and duration, can change how intensely the brain activates its cooling mechanisms. From a health perspective, Understanding this system highlights the importance of balanced sunlight exposure. While moderate sunlight enhances mood, alertness, and vitamin D production, excessive heat can overwhelm the brain's protective systems. Proper hydration timing and protective clothing help the brain maintain optimal body temperature while allowing the benefits of sunlight to flourish. Finally, temperature regulation is not only about survival. It shapes long-term brain and bodily health. Consistent moderate exposure to sunlight trains the hypothalamus to respond efficiently to environmental changes, strengthening the autonomic nervous system and improving resilience. Regular safe sunlight exposure can even improve metabolic function, enhance circulatory health, and support brain plasticity, demonstrating that the brain's response to heat is a critical component of overall wellness. In essence, the experience of standing in sunlight is not passive. It is a dynamic conversation between the brain, body, and environment. The hypothalamus acts as a vigilant guardian, interpreting thermal signals, activating cooling mechanisms, modulating hormones, and guiding behavior. Every sweat droplet, blood vessel dilation, and subtle shift in posture reflects the brain's intricate effort to maintain balance. Sunlight becomes a teacher, challenging the body while enhancing resilience, all under the careful supervision of the brain's temperature control system. Standing in sunlight is not just a physical experience, it is an emotional and chemical journey for the brain. From the very first moment, sunlight begins to influence the delicate balance of hormones and neurotransmitters, which shape mood, cognition, motivation, and overall mental energy. This is why humans naturally feel happier and more energized during bright sunny days, a phenomenon that science has now explained in intricate detail. The brain's primary response to sunlight starts in the retina. Specialized photoreceptors detect light intensity and wavelength, particularly the blue light spectrum, which is abundant in natural sunlight. These signals travel through the retinohypothalamic tract to the suprachiasmatic nucleus in the hypothalamus, the body's master clock. The SCN then communicates with several regions responsible for hormonal regulation, including the pineal gland, pituitary gland, and adrenal glands. One of the first hormonal changes is the suppression of melatonin, a hormone that signals sleepiness. Melatonin is naturally high at night, helping the body rest. But sunlight reduces its production almost immediately. This hormonal shift signals the brain, it's time to wake up and be alert. At the same time, sunlight triggers the production of serotonin, often called a feel-good neurotransmitter. Serotonin is synthesized in the RAF nuclei of the brainstem, but sunlight enhances its production by signaling these neurons to increase enzymatic activity. Serotonin has multiple effects on mental and physical health. It stabilizes mood, reduces anxiety, enhances focus, and regulates appetite. Higher serotonin levels translate to feelings of calm, confidence, and contentment. Psychologically, this is why people who spend time outdoors in sunlight often feel more optimistic and emotionally resilient. Over time, consistent sunlight exposure strengthens the brain's ability to produce serotonin naturally, reducing the risk of seasonal affective disorder and other mood disturbances. Another critical hormone influenced by sunlight, the brain's motivation molecule. Dopamine is synthesized in regions like the ventral tegmental area and the substantia nigra, and sunlight indirectly stimulates its release through complex neural pathways involving the SCN and hypothalamus. Dopamine is responsible for reward perception, goal-oriented behavior, and cognitive alertness. When sunlight boosts dopamine, individuals feel motivated to engage with their environment, complete tasks, and pursue activities that provide satisfaction. Essentially, sunlight acts as a natural enhancer for the brain's reward system. In addition, sunlight exposure increases endorphins, the body's natural painkillers and pleasure chemicals. Endorphins are peptides released by the pituitary gland and hypothalamus, and their release can create a mild euphoric sensation, reduce stress perception, and even temporarily relieve physical discomfort. This is one reason why activities like walking, jogging, or exercising outdoors in the sun are often associated with a happy high, combining physical movement with hormonal benefits. Sunlight also indirectly enhances cognitive function. Through its influence on serotonin, dopamine, and endorphins, the brain becomes more capable of memory formation, problem solving, and focus. Studies have shown that people exposed to natural light during the day have better concentration, improved learning ability, and more efficient decision-making compared to those in dim or artificial lighting. The sunlight is essentially tuning the brain's astra for optimum performance. Vitamin D synthesis adds another layer of hormonal and neurological benefit. When ultraviolet B rays from sunlight hit the skin, vitamin D production is activated. Vitamin D is not just essential for bones, it also plays a role in neurotransmitter synthesis, neuroplasticity, and immune system regulation. Low levels of vitamin D are associated with cognitive decline and fatigue. The brain, therefore, receives multiple messages from sunlight: wake up, energize, and maintain mental health. From an evolutionary perspective, these hormonal responses make perfect sense. Humans have evolved in environments where daylight signals activity, food search, social interaction, and survival opportunities. Sunlight became a cue for the brain to increase alertness, stimulate motivation, and enhance mood, providing a competitive advantage. Those who responded efficiently to sunlight were more likely to thrive, learn, and adapt. The effects of sunlight on hormones also extend to stress regulation. Cortisol, the body's primary stress hormone, follows a daily rhythm, naturally peaking in the morning to prepare the body for activity. Sunlight helps synchronize cortisol production with the circadian rhythm, ensuring that stress responses are timely and adaptive, rather than chronic or damaging. Balanced cortisol levels improve focus, energy utilization, and resilience to emotional or physical stressors. However, the brain's response is finely tuned. Too much sunlight without protection can trigger excessive cortisol, heat stress, or oxidative stress, which can temporarily impair cognition and mood. The body and brain therefore rely on feedback loops, adjusting hormone levels and behaviors, like seeking shade or hydration, to maintain balance. This highlights the importance of moderate, safe sunlight exposure. In practice, sunlight's hormonal benefits are evident in daily life. Morning sunlight boosts alertness for work or study. Midday sun exposure during outdoor activities enhances energy and motivation. Regular sunlight strengthens emotional resilience, reducing anxiety and depression. Children exposed to sunlight develop better attention, learning capacity, and mood regulation. In conclusion, standing in sunlight is not merely a passive sensory experience, it is an active hormonal intervention orchestrated by the brain. From serotonin to dopamine, endorphins to cortisol, and vitamin D synthesis, sunlight influences multiple pathways that regulate mood, motivation, mental energy, and cognitive function. Each ray of light is a signal, a trigger, and a stimulant, shaping not only immediate emotions but also long-term brain health. The sun, through its influence on the endocrine system, becomes both a source of energy and a teacher, guiding the brain toward balance, alertness, and emotional well-being. Standing in sunlight is not merely a visual or hormonal experience, it is also a profound cardiovascular and neurological event. The brain, though only about 2% of body weight, consumes roughly 20% of the body's oxygen and glucose, making it an extraordinarily energy-demanding organ. Sunlight influences the brain indirectly by affecting blood flow, oxygen delivery, and nutrient supply, ensuring that neurons remain fully functional and alert during periods of environmental exposure. When sunlight hits the body, the skin absorbs light energy, slightly warming surface tissues. Thermoreceptors and photoreceptors transmit signals to the hypothalamus, which integrates information about light intensity, environmental temperature, and internal body needs. The hypothalamus then coordinates with the cardiovascular system to optimize blood flow for both cooling and brain function. Blood vessels dilate in certain regions, including the cerebral arteries, to enhance the delivery of oxygen-rich blood to neurons. Oxygen is the brain's most critical nutrient, enabling aerobic metabolism in mitochondria, the cellular powerhouses. Neurons rely on oxygen to convert glucose into adenosine phosphate, the energy currency of the brain. Adequate oxygen levels ensure that neurons can fire rapidly, synapses can transmit signals efficiently, and cognitive processes such as attention, memory, and decision-making operate at peak capacity. Sunlight indirectly supports this process by stimulating cardiovascular adjustments, slight increases in heart rate and blood pressure, which ensure continuous oxygen delivery. In addition to oxygen, glucose supply is tightly regulated. The hypothalamus communicates with the pancreas and liver to modulate blood sugar levels, ensuring that neurons receive a steady flow of glucose. Sunlight signals wakefulness and increased activity, prompting the brain to request energy reserves in preparation for daytime tasks. This synergy between light perception, hormone signaling, and energy metabolism highlights the brain's anticipatory intelligence. It prepares the body before significant activity even begins. The effects of sunlight on cerebral blood flow are particularly beneficial for cognitive performance. Studies have shown that individuals exposed to natural light exhibit improved memory recall, problem-solving ability, and concentration, compared to those in dim or artificial lighting. This is partly due to enhanced oxygenation and partly due to hormonal modulation, particularly serotonin and dopamine, which improve neuronal communication. Essentially, sunlight not only illuminates the environment, but also energizes the brain internally. However, the brain is acutely sensitive to environmental stressors. If a person stands in intense sunlight without hydration, blood volume may decrease due to sweat-induced fluid loss. Lower blood volume reduces cerebral perfusion, meaning less oxygen and glucose reach neurons. The brain detects this immediately through baroreceptors and chemoreceptors, triggering warning signals such as dizziness, headache, fatigue, or blurred vision. These symptoms are protective. They compel the individual to seek shade, drink water, or reduce activity, preventing neuronal damage from hypoxia or dehydration. The hypothalamus also communicates with the autonomic nervous system to balance these demands. In response to sunlight-induced heat, sympathetic activity may increase slightly, raising heart rate and directing blood flow to essential organs, including the brain. At the same time, peripheral vasodilation helps dissipate excess heat. This dual adjustment ensures that brain oxygenation is maintained even under thermal stress, showcasing the remarkable adaptability of the nervous system. Another important aspect of sunlight's effect on blood flow is its long-term benefit for neurovascular health. Regular, moderate sunlight exposure strengthens the brain's vascular system, improving the elasticity of blood vessels and supporting anagylasis, the formation of new capillaries. Enhanced capillary networks improve the delivery of oxygen and nutrients, which supports neuroplasticity, the brain's ability to form new connections and learn efficiently. Over time, sunlight exposure can contribute to better cognitive aging, reducing risks of memory decline, dementia, and other neurodegenerative conditions. Interestingly, sunlight can also influence mental energy perception. When the brain receives adequate oxygen and glucose, neurons function optimally, and the individual experiences alertness, motivation, and mental clarity. Conversely, insufficient blood flow or dehydration reduces cerebral efficiency, leading to mental fatigue. This is why a walk in moderate sunlight often feels mentally rejuvenating, while prolonged exposure without hydration or rest can produce cognitive dullness. The interaction between sunlight, blood flow, and oxygen delivery also highlights the brain's integrated regulatory systems. The cardiovascular, endocrine, and nervous systems work in concert to optimize neuronal function. Sunlight is the external cue that initiates this symphony, activating photoreceptors, stimulating the hypothalamus, modulating heart rate, adjusting blood vessel tone, and synchronizing hormone levels. The result is a harmonious balance. The brain remains alert, energized, and capable of navigating both environmental challenges and mental tasks. From an evolutionary perspective, these mechanisms have immense survival value. Humans evolved in environments where daylight signaled opportunity, activity, and potential threats. Enhanced blood flow and oxygen delivery during daylight hours allowed early humans to hunt, forage, and communicate effectively. The brain learned to associate sunlight with energy mobilization, attentiveness, and readiness. Today, the same mechanisms continue to benefit modern humans, albeit in less survival-critical contexts, by supporting work, study, and social interactions. In summary, sunlight affects the brain far beyond mere warmth or visual perception. It triggers cardiovascular, neural, and hormonal adjustments that optimize oxygen and glucose delivery to neurons, ensuring that cognitive and emotional functions are maintained at high levels. Proper hydration and moderate exposure amplify these benefits, while excessive heat or dehydration triggers protective responses. Through this intricate balance, the brain transforms sunlight into mental fuel, enhancing alertness, memory, focus, and long-term brain health. Standing in sunlight, therefore, is not simply a passive act. It is a complex orchestration of energy delivery, neural activation, and survival intelligence, all guided by the brain. The sun becomes not only a source of light and warmth, but also a silent provider of oxygen, energy, and cognitive vitality. While moderate sunlight is vital for health, prolonged or intense exposure can trigger the brain's stress response, a sophisticated protective mechanism designed to prevent damage to the body's cells and vital systems. The brain constantly monitors environmental conditions, integrating signals from light, heat, hydration, and internal metabolic states. When sunlight becomes excessive, the hypothalamus activates the hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis, a primary pathway for managing stress, alerting the body that it must respond immediately to potential danger. The process begins with photoreceptors and photoreceptors. As sunlight warms the skin beyond comfortable thresholds, these receptors transmit signals to the hypothalamus. Simultaneously, the brain monitors internal body temperature, blood pressure, and hydration levels. When a combination of these signals exceeds safe limits, the hypothalamus interprets the situation as a physiological threat. It responds by releasing corticotropin, releasing hormone, which stimulates the pituitary gland to secrete adrenocorticotropic hormone. AC then signals the adrenal glands to produce cortisol, the primary stress hormone. Cortisol is a multifunctional hormone that prepares the body for action. It increases blood glucose levels by mobilizing stored energy, enhancing alertness and readiness for potential physical challenges. Cortisol also modulates immune responses and reduces non-essential functions to conserve energy. In the context of intense sunlight, cortisol helps the brain and body cope with thermal stress, ensuring that neurons remain active and organs continue to function. Alongside cortisol, sunlight-induced stress can trigger adrenaline release. Adrenaline rapidly increases heart rate, blood pressure, and respiratory rate, improving oxygen and nutrient delivery to vital organs, including the brain. This fight or flight activation is protective. It allows the individual to seek shade, hydrate, or move to a cooler environment. While adrenaline provides immediate survival benefits, excessive or prolonged activation can lead to neural fatigue, anxiety, and elevated oxidative stress in the brain. The stress response also affects cognition and behavior. Short-term activation can enhance alertness, focus, and reaction time, enabling rapid decision-making in challenging conditions. For example, a person caught in harsh sunlight may quickly recognize danger, find shelter, or adjust behavior to reduce heat exposure. However, prolonged stress overwhelms neural circuits, impairing memory, reducing attention span, and causing feelings of fatigue or confusion. These effects are protective signals from the brain, indicating that the body has reached its safe limits. Dehydration is a critical factor in sunlight-induced stress. When sweat loss exceeds fluid intake, blood volume decreases, reducing cerebral perfusion. The brain detects this through baroreceptors and osmoreceptors, which trigger thirst and amplify stress hormone release. The combination of heat and low blood volume amplifies cortisol and adrenaline production, emphasizing the urgency of seeking water and shade. This demonstrates the brain's role in integrating environmental and internal signals to protect overall health. At the cellular level, excessive sunlight can also increase oxidative stress, particularly in neurons. Heat stress elevates the production of free radicals, which can damage cellular components, including DNA, proteins, and mitochondria. The brain's stress response includes antioxidant mechanisms, enhanced blood flow, and hormonal adjustments to mitigate this damage. If exposure continues unchecked, however, neuronal efficiency decreases, cognitive function declines, and physical symptoms such as dizziness, headaches, and nausea may occur. Behaviorally, the brain drives individuals to respond to sunlight stress through instinctive and learned actions. These include seeking shade or shelter, drinking water to maintain hydration, reducing physical activity, wearing protective clothing or covering the skin. These behavioral responses are a critical part of the brain's integrated stress management system, ensuring that physiological stress does not escalate into heat stroke or organ damage. Interestingly, the stress response to sunlight is also adaptive over time. Individuals who experience regular, moderate sun exposure develop better thermoregulation, cardiovascular resilience, and hormonal balance. Their HPA axis responds efficiently. Cortisol levels remain within healthy limits, and the brain learns to anticipate and mitigate environmental stress. This is why outdoor work, exercise, or sunlight routines, when conducted safely, can strengthen both mental and physical resilience. From an evolutionary perspective, this system has clear survival advantages. Early humans exposed to intense sunlight during hunting, gathering, or migration needed rapid physiological responses to avoid heat exhaustion or dehydration. The brain's ability to detect thermal stress and trigger hormonal, neural, and behavioral responses increased survival odds. Today, this same system functions to protect modern humans from the hidden dangers of prolonged sun exposure, even during recreational or professional activities. In practical terms, managing sunlight-induced stress involves awareness, hydration, and timing. The brain relies on environmental cues to maintain equilibrium. By respecting these cues, such as taking breaks, drinking fluids, and avoiding midday sun, the stress response remains balanced, and the brain continues to function optimally. Conversely, ignoring these signals can overwhelm the HPA axis, resulting in physical and mental strain, illustrating the delicate interplay between external stimuli and brain-controlled homeostasis. In summary, the brain's stress response to excessive sunlight is a multi-layered system involving hormones, neural circuits, blood flow regulation, and behavioral cues. Cortisol, adrenaline, and other mediators prepare the body to cope with thermal stress, while simultaneously signaling the need for adaptive behavior. This system ensures survival, protects neurons, and maintains cognitive function, highlighting the brain's extraordinary capacity to balance benefit and risk in response to sunlight. Standing in the sun is thus a dynamic test for the brain. It requires continuous monitoring, rapid adaptation, and integration of multiple signals to maintain equilibrium. While sunlight energizes and nourishes, excessive exposure teaches the brain to respond, protect, and regulate, demonstrating a remarkable synergy between environment, body, and mind.